What up, everybody? Welcome to the Hoof Podcast, AFC Championship Edition. Feels good to say that.
Hell
Welcome
yeah,
in.
baby.
Yeah, we're still talking Bills because the Bills are still playing. Normally, this would be our off-season episode as we get into hey, what do the Bills need? How'd the team do this year? But they are still alive, going to Kansas City for a shot at the Super Bowl. So very exciting. How'd you feel about the Baltimore game? I know.
I
I have a
mean,
lot to say about it.
yeah, exactly. A win, you have to win. That's what matters. A win is a win. We won the game. That's great. It was a, you know, they did what they had to do to win the game. A conservative effort in the second half, obviously, a couple opportunities missed, but ultimately you win the game, right? And the thing that frustrated me the most was people blame Mark Andrews' drop being the whole game when it's like anybody who said that, and Tony Romo said, "Oh, that's the catch to send it to overtime," and immediately I was furious. I'm like, Tony Romo, go F yourself, you effing idiot. Do you play football, Tony Romo? When you played football, Tony Romo, and there were 2 timeouts and a minute and a half left, did you say it was overtime? No, you absolute imbecile. So why are you saying it in a playoff game on national TV that everybody's watching? Because you know damn well I wanted Mark Andrews to catch that ball. I wanted him to catch that ball so that Josh Allen could come out and actually win the game and show what he's actually made of. Now, we won, so I could care less. I don't care if Josh Allen had the worst game of his life and the Bills won. That's all that matters. But, they definitely put the reins on Josh Allen a little bit in this one.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to work moving forward now,
Well,
playing the
it's
Chiefs.
game plan specific,
Exactly.
right? I feel like Baltimore did a lot of
100%.
preparation to play against, Josh Allen and kind of the off script stuff, but then game plan didn't really include a lot of that, right? So
Yeah.
I think it caught him off guard a little bit. I mean,
I
don't know if you watched the Hard Knocks
I did not.
AFC North episode, but
I did not.
It did show the Baltimore Ravens were playing. They were preparing for the off script. I forget what they call it, plaster, right? So it's like when the play breaks down, they were calling it plaster.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to scramble and improvise, and you got to be able to stay with your guy and guard that. That was the big point on the show, at least. So yeah, really kudos to the Bills because I don't think anyone expected that. I mean, the media hyped it up all week. It's MVP candidate versus MVP candidate. 2 top quarterbacks statistically this year. So, I mean, a lot of people expected a shootout, but the Bills didn't really – the game plan was not to shoot out, right? So, he threw a curveball, and it worked. A lot to unpack with that game because I feel like with no turnovers from the Bills and 3 turnovers for the Ravens, the score should have been a little higher, right? Like, we shouldn't have been, down to the wire in that game. I feel like the Bills had so many opportunities to put the game away in the third quarter. And look, playoff games are never really over, but maintain a 3-score lead, right? That would have been a lot better. So I felt like that was frustrating because how many times has this team been in a position where it's like you just can't put the game away and somehow you end up losing the game, right?
This team, not this team, but
right.
General,
I mean, the Bills historically,
yes.
like recent
Agreed.
history.
Yes, but again, it was kind of for me one of those games where, yeah, it was nerve-wracking because every possession mattered, and we talked about it all last week. Everything we said came to fruition. Turnovers, that was a big factor. Stopping on third downs, both sides really. The Ravens stopping the Bills when they could have gotten out of hand. And the Bills stopping the Ravens with the turnovers. That is huge and was huge in this game and was the difference, right? And in most football games, that's going to be a difference. But my God, yeah, it didn't matter in this one. And the Bills, the one possession that frustrated me the most was when the refs called that terrible Deion Dawkins hold where the guy he fell to the ground. He didn't hold him. And obviously everybody has said that there's no way that's a hold on any planet. And it was an absolute terrible call, but it was the timing and the moment it happened. If the Bills had scored on all 3 other drives in the first half, if we even get a field goal there in addition to what we already had,
Right.
and come out in the second half, I mean, you have an even bigger lead. You force the Ravens to pass. I mean, you just put them in a terrible, terrible spot, which we also discussed last week if the Bills were able to do that. So the fact that the refs were the factor that took us out of that was extremely frustrating.
Yeah, and it's one call. I mean, the Bills
One
can overcome
possession.
that, but it kills momentum.
Oh,
That's
huge. Yeah.
It does have an impact.
Yes, and we were driving. They were clock killing, getting points. It was just everything you wanted to see in that first half. And even though Josh Allen wasn't lighting up the stat book, and I had fun with that on Twitter, I did say after the first half, I said, "Hey, guess what, guys? Congratulate Lamar on being the MVP of the first half, even though he had 2 turnovers, because he led in all the stats. He had the yardage in rushing and in passing. So wow,
Yeah,
MVP
some nice
Lamar.
throws. Yeah.
He led in all the stats. Yeah, get the hell out of here. Obviously, Josh, commanded that game, and he could have done more, but he didn't need to. And that's what ultimately matters. If this were the Super Bowl, I don't give a shit if Josh Allen doesn't get a passing touchdown or doesn't do anything. Like, just win, baby. That's what matters, right? And that's exactly what this team did. Huge credit to Sean McDermott. I thought this was one of the biggest moments of Sean McDermott's coaching career. And yeah, it's not the Chiefs, but this game, we were underdogs at home. You go undefeated at home. You finish the job. You make the tough decisions in the right way, right? You kick the field goal when you could have gone for it on 4th down at the 1 yard line. And ultimately, that's the difference.
I'm waiting
in the
for
game.
you to say it. You haven't said it yet. Also, the defense showed up for this game.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Right, that's credit to Sean McDermott. I mean,
yes,
defensive head coach. You'd like to see the defense show up in the
healthy
big moments, and
defense
they did in this game.
matters, and that's what I've been preaching going into the playoffs. Literally every game leading up to the playoffs, we had one of our major guys out, one of our major players out. Now we could talk about going into this week because on the onside kick, we lost Benford to a concussion. So, but he's in the protocol, but he's at least practicing now. So there's good signs there. Matt Milano didn't play the last series because he was banged up.
Right.
He's also at practice. So hopefully there's a sign there. Yeah. So you cannot be without these guys against the Chiefs. We've seen that script before, and it just makes me hold my breath and say, please, dear freaking God, be healthy for that game on Sunday, because we have to have that defense ready. And again, the defense doesn't surprise me because I've been telling everybody that when these guys are healthy and on the field together, this defense is damn good. And they are. So, yeah, the defense did very well, thankfully. I thought they could have finished on some of the pressures a little more. Lamar was able to sit in the pocket. But he was able to sit in the pocket. You expect him to do that if he rolls out and runs or whatever.
I feel like if you pursue him, he makes one move, he'll run 10 yards on you,
True,
they did a great job of containing him.
Yes.
To the best you can. He still gets out, right? But
yes,
I thought they had a good game plan against Lamar. And we talked about this, right? You stop Derrick Henry. That's the main focus.
Yes, and they absolutely
You're going to force Lamar to make plays in the cold weather. And he made a lot of good plays, right? So credit to Lamar. I mean, the turnovers are the difference in the game for sure. But
the passes, though, I mean, he let guys get open. I mean, in coverage, if he's got 6 seconds back there, somebody's going to get open, and those were the frustrating plays.
We're not pursuing him, right?
Because we knew that was going to happen. And it's Lamar, right? I've said I have ultimate respect for Lamar, but he's no Josh Allen, and he never will be, because he's just differently talented, more talented.
I think you got you put so much focus on Derrick Henry, and I feel like you got the Baltimore Ravens kind of second guessing things towards the end. The fact that Derrick Henry wasn't even on the field, the 2-point conversion, right?
Yeah.
He was not on the field for a lot of goal line, but at least use him as a decoy. But the Bills all night were stuffing him, so they were looking to get.
And Hill had the better breakaway runs, right? It was the backup running back who did more damage against the Bills, and that was kind of, I think, where that strategy came in of pass catching. Okay, who's had the more electric runs? Maybe the Bills will think we're more likely to give it to this guy if he's on the field.
Right. So they were leaning on Lamar. The two 2-point conversion attempts were both passes. One's tipped, one's dropped. So I feel like that really paid off for the Bills.
Oh yeah. And again, defense and Sean McDermott, his best coach game as a Buffalo Bill, certainly one of the most memorable, because Bills basically played mistake-free football, played their style, controlled, were calm, cool, and collected the entire game. and that matters, and that's why they won.
Yeah.
There was no flustering this team, and
But I
they were
know.
focused.
Yeah, and I know you felt it though. Okay, Mark Andrews drops the 2-point conversion. Bills have a 2-point lead, onside kick.
Oh,
All the Bills fans felt it, right? Okay, like
yes, yes,
5% chance to get the ball, but we're like, this is the most Bills lost
100%,
right now because
yes.
they're gonna get the onside kick and then field goal. They need to go like 5 to 10 yards.
Yeah.
And that's how you lose. Justin Tucker, like, he's had a kind of an off year, but he's still the capability. He
Oh,
can
yeah.
hit it from,
And you don't want to be
55 plus.
another one of those storylines. So yeah, I mean
Right.
that
It was there
definitely
though. Yeah,
that
that
was
was a little
definitely
scary.
there. Again, another reason why I wished he caught that 2-point conversion, because at least then they're kicking it off. They're not going onside there, and you have the ball back. So yeah, that was a little bit of a nail biter, but it's not an easy in that weather, and in that an onside kick is tough, and the fielding, luckily we recovered and the game's over, and again, Bills win. Classy act by Josh Allen to go right up to Lamar. And again, all the respect for Lamar. Lamar, in that moment, he just lost the game. He's out of the playoffs. And in that moment, he was just excited for Josh Allen. He shook Josh's hand. He said, "You go get him by." And they exchanged words, that we couldn't see, but just the smile and the greeting that he gave Josh Allen, made me respect him even more, because it's like, look, that's one of the hardest moments of your career, and you are genuinely excited for the other guy and say, "Hey, go get him, go win this thing." And then he faced the media and had to eat all the comments, and and he owned it. He said, "It's on me. You have to protect the ball, and I didn't do that." And it's tough, because man, was I celebrating when he he threw that gimme ball up for the interception. I mean, that was boneheaded to say the least, but he knew that, and he owned it. Yeah, so good season for Lamar and the whole Ravens organization as usual. But so glad that the Bills were able to win undefeated at home. That's very, very special thing to do, and very cool.
Yeah, very hard,
So
right?
yeah. So something to celebrate there. And now we go on to Kansas City, where we knew it was all going to come through this, right? I mean, it's tough not to. And we talked about this gauntlet before. The coaches, the teams, you take down Denver. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Their defense was doing very well, and we shut them down, right? And Sean Payton, goodbye, right? And now you go to John Harbaugh, and Super Bowl winning coach, best team roster in the NFL according to pretty much everybody, 9 All Pros, all that, and you beat them too at home, get the job done. So now you
Yeah.
go on the road versus your mentor Andy Reid, and if you can beat him in their stadium, I mean, it's a storybook route to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean that's what we talked about. That's what you want, right? You want the Bills to go play the best in the AFC and actually win one of these. I feel like it would have been the trifecta if the Bengals made the playoffs and you beat them in
That's
the
right.
wild card. That would have been the trifecta, right? But we'll take it. Big win for the Bills. I mean, Chiefs they haven't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, so that's definitely something on the radar. It's no gimme, right?
Not at all. That team knows how to win, and they've won kind of like the Bills did against the Ravens there, right? Where it's you do what you need to win, and that's all that matters. And yeah, you got to respect them. You have to know that they know what they're doing. I said it last week with them. They're going to play mistake-free football. They're not going to make boneheaded mistakes. They're not going to do it.
Right.
I think I heard this week that Pat Mahomes has not thrown an interception since the Bills game when he threw that interception, which is wild. Like
that is pretty wild.
That's a pretty good stat.
Yeah, and we know they're not the flashiest team this year. They've had injuries, Marquise Brown in particular at receiver. But again, they find a way to win. And really, I think they're number one in points allowed on defense. So really that speaks a lot, right? They're holding teams to a low number of, points, and they're just finding ways to win in the last possession, right? That's what it feels like. It's 1-score games throughout. That's what they've been doing all season long outside of the Bills game, right? And outside the Broncos game, which doesn't really count. Week 18. But I mean, that's how they've played all year. So it'll be interesting to see if that's still their game plan, or are they going to try to, come out and score a lot versus the Bills, right? I think the Bills showed some vulnerability last week with Lamar Jackson. He hit a lot of deep throws. I thought DeMar Hamlin was playing a little bit too far up, right? He should have been back a little more. And Lamar Jackson took advantage of that. And also Taylor Rapp with the injury, looks like Cole Bishop's probably the guy at safety, right? So I feel like the Chiefs are looking at this. They might try to take some shots here, right? You have the speed. Marquise Brown's back. Xavier Worthy. We know about the 4.2 speed. I mean, I think the Bills go into this thinking we're going to get, the run team and the short passes to the tight end. But I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have something up their sleeve and try to take shots at the safeties.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. The good thing that I counter that with is that, we still have one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL this year, right? You put Benford on somebody, he's pretty much going to shut him down, right? So if he's able to go on whoever, pick a guy, speed-wise, Marquise Brown is probably going to be where the safety's attention is, obviously, to whatever side, that's the guy you got to watch out for. But you take their other, our two cornerbacks, put them on their two receivers. Worthy's speedy too. I mean, but I still think the edge there is, if a team is passing against us, that's in our favor. And the Chiefs' run game is nowhere near as scary as their pass game. Now, the difference maker for them, obviously, is Travis Kelce as well. Hasn't been really himself through this regular season, but against the Texans, all of a sudden emerged, right? And they just refused to cover him for some reason. But the Bills will have a better game plan for that, I think. So to that, I say, let them pass, right? Maybe they will get a big play here and there. But again, I trust our corners to be in coverage. I trust our defense to be ready for the pass and be able to contain the run. And yeah, the rest is going to happen. Plus, that allows, if they're going to do a deep pass, you have more time to get the pressure home on Mahomes. And right. I think their offensive line can be had, right? We saw that in the first matchup with Buffalo. The Bills pass rushers got home a few times and did get pressure on Mahomes to actually, fluster him in the pocket. And that makes a difference when you can do that with Mahomes. And I think ultimately, if a team is passing, I don't care who you are, if you're passing against this Bills defense, you're playing to our strength. So I do agree with you that makes sense as a game plan. Taylor Rapp still day-to-day, but yeah, probably out, which means you're going to have the rookie out there. And man, Cole Bishop made a few bonehead plays in the last game. I don't know if you saw, but I was watching where he was on the field. I'm like, 24, what the hell are you doing? What are you over there? What are you doing? Like, and I think that's just because, yeah, he's a rookie. He's a rookie. He hasn't had a lot of playing time. He needs to be ready for the moment. And I think this week, being prepared for it, he will be, I hope, a little bit more at least. And, he does still have upside as a playmaker, taking the ball away, right? That's more of his type of strength than, say the coverage or the tackling necessarily. But yeah, it should be, if you're the Chiefs, there's no doubt that you are targeting that and you're keeping your eye on that.
Yes. And really, like, there's been a lot of talk about the Bills, right? Okay, Stephon Diggs, there's no longer a go-to receiver.
Yeah.
Which it makes it harder for defensive coordinators to game plan. It makes it harder for defenses to, focus their attention. The Chiefs, I feel like, are playing that same style of football this year, right? Xavier Worthy's their number one receiver with 638 yards. Travis Kelce, there's leading the team in receiving yards. But again, it's pretty balanced. Like, okay, D Hop's at 437 on yardage, Noah Gray 437, right?
Yeah.
Who else? Juju Smith-Schuster 231. Like, they're all pretty even, right? There's no one person you really target all the time. Obviously, Kelce gets his, but like, you look at the receivers, it's pretty balanced throughout. So again, there's not one guy you're going to really pay attention to.
I would counter that, yes. And again, I think that favors the Bills in many ways. I would counter that by saying you're comparing our offenses that are apples and oranges, though.
Mhm.
Yeah, great. Nobody has 1,000 yards. That's where the story ends. The Bills' offense was electric this year. Okay, we scored 30 points in almost every game. Josh Allen, the highest, what were we? The highest or the second highest points per game, whatever, up there in the NFL. The Chiefs waddled
Second.
their way through the regular season, right? Like they faltered and fell on their face and ass backwards themselves into a few wins, right? So their offense did not do well this year by anyone's standard, I would say. The Bills' offense was phenomenal. So our everybody eats mentality works. The Chiefs was more just here are the pieces we have. And while Josh Allen had arguably one of his best seasons, Pat Mahomes had his worst, without a doubt. So that's, where these two offenses were, at least in the regular season. Yeah, you bring that to the postseason. Obviously, the Chiefs have only played the one game, and it wasn't phenomenal either. The best thing on that game was Kelsey, and they just refused to cover him for some reason, or he got open way too much. But still, I think that's something to be contained. And if you remember that Bills game, it was Noah Gray who had the other tight end, who had the big game, 2 touchdowns, made some
Right.
big time
Right.
catches in that game. And I think that was because the Bills knew the game plan for Kelsey and were
Right.
focused on the receivers, and the speed, and that opened things up for Noah Gray. So you have to be aware of that this time around as well when that guy is on the field. So I think that, again, McDermott and the game plan will be focused on that. Against the Ravens, it was the run and Derrick Henry, and we did take him out of it, really. He under 100 yards, the 1 touchdown, who cares?
Yeah,
The
had one
same
good
thing
drive,
here
right?
for the passing. And, yes, Mahomes is the focus, but more so, how are you going to limit his weapons and get home in the pass rush, right? And that's what the Bills are game planning for all week.
Right, and I fully expect Pat Mahomes to be more mobile in this game. We haven't really seen that a lot from him, but it's playoff time, right?
Oh, yeah, he's going to have
Chiefs
to be.
know how to win the playoffs. He runs a ton in playoff games, so that's another big factor.
Yes.
Really, they're a nightmare to defend, right? It's just because you got to focus on the speed, right? We know Worthy's a small guy. You can jam him at the line and disrupt his deep routes, but if he breaks free, man, that 4.2 speed is dangerous. So you have to play deep. You got to pay attention to Kelsey, as you said. And you kind of try to keep everything in front of you, and that's what the Bills do, right? Let's keep everything in front of us. But then, like you said already, Noah Gray is going to get involved, and then you have this underneath throw to Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a physical receiver, right? Who's tough to tackle. So,
and to your point, if you use a spy, then somebody's going to get open, Noah Gray or Kelsey or whatever.
Right.
And if you don't use a spy, the pass rush comes home. Mahomes is so good at just rushing up, and then you're going to get 10 yards before there's a guy to tackle him. So, yeah, you have to really execute the game plan phenomenally. And really, the Bills have done that the past few weeks. So
in the past few matchups
to
with the Chiefs, they've done that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I know it's a new roster, right? A lot of these players haven't played against the Chiefs in the playoffs, but Josh Allen, I feel like the last time they played the Chiefs, they understood you cannot make mistakes. You have to try to score on every single drive.
Correct.
And it came down to the wire, and the Bills had a real shot to win that game. And I think that's what's going to take this week as well. You just have to try to score on every single drive.
Yes, absolutely, right? And the good thing, so we were talking Chiefs offense against Bills defense mainly. The pass rush, I think is going to be, I'm focusing there to say you have to get home. Again, get to Mahomes, put the pressure on, sack him, hit him. Be careful when you hit him, because God knows if you exhale when you tackle him, that's a penalty. But point being, if you get the pressure there, that's what's going to affect the outcome. And you have to do that. And I think I have faith that the Bills can do that based on the first game we saw and how they're playing of late, right? So again, they're playing their best effort in the playoffs. So I do like that for the Bills. Flipping to the Bills offense against this Chiefs defense, you got to be able to play your style of football. The Chiefs can be run on, actually, and Josh Allen is not going to be afraid to throw the ball against this team. They're vulnerable in the slot, which the Bills like to play their tight ends and Khalil Shakir and everybody else in the slot, right? So there's going to be guys who get open for Josh. And, just as, even though Andy Reid is an offensive-minded head coach, their defense is going to be ready for Josh as well, right? They still have, one of the best defensive players in football over there. And he's a threat. And again, this is one of those games where I say Josh has avoided sacks so well this year. If he gets sacked, it's not the end of the world. As long as it's not, a devastating 10, 12-yard sack and it's only contained near the line, right? They're going to get home. I'm expecting Josh to get sacked this game. But it's how you execute and the timing of that. Chris Jones, yeah, he's the best. So I think, and when he's there, that means you're paying attention to him. So somebody else might come, even though they're, nowhere near to the level of Chris Jones, and get through. So when you have that threat, they're going to get home and they're going to get theirs too. But it's how you respond to that and how you limit that in situations. You can't let it happen on a big third down, right? That would be devastating because now you're giving the ball back to them, right? Likely in that scenario. So you have to be able to play your style of football, run the ball, just like we have all year long, all playoffs long. You got to, find the efficiency in the pass game. The conservative nature of the play calls, though, that shit has to go out the window, because that second half against Baltimore was not great offensively, and it was by design. Like you said, they were playing clock management. They're playing the team. In this game, they have to say, we need to score on this drive. We need to treat this like it's the game-winning scoring drive. And I think they will. And, I said this to one of my friends who said that he thinks the Bills have a good shot. And I said, well, let me put it this way. If there's going to be a blowout in this game, it's going to be the Bills blowing out the Chiefs. I'm confident in that. I feel good about that. I don't think the Chiefs are going to blow out the Bills. I think if it's a blowout, the Bills blow out the Chiefs. Most likely, it's going to be a closer game, and the Bills probably have the advantage there in my mind because they're playing good football. They've stayed clean. The Chiefs are as vulnerable as they've ever been. The other big factor for the Chiefs is home field advantage, which we as Buffalo know that is a factor in the playoffs. So we'll see how that all comes down. But ultimately, I'm confident in what Joe Brady has dialed up for this offense. And we know they're holding back. And this is the game you're holding back for. So whatever you got, you're unloading it here. And we're going to see the true nature of this offense at 1,000%. Because there's nothing holding back. You're not holding place for the Super Bowl. No, that's not happening. This is the game to put it all out there. And I think they will. And that's going to lead to hopefully some good things.
Yeah, and if you can control the line of scrimmage, right, which the Bills have done in most games this year, you control the clock. And I think that's a huge advantage on the road versus a good team like Kansas City. If you can just sustain long drives that are productive, that turn into points, I think that's the formula to win with this roster in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Bills have been good at that. It's kind of what they did last week, right? It wasn't anything fancy. We don't need splash plays. You just need to control the clock, keep Pat Mahomes off the field, and hope they make a mistake.
Exactly.
And I feel like the Bills are built to do that this year, right? That's different than previous matchups with the Chiefs. We saw that a little bit in the regular season versus the Chiefs, but Bills only had 104, team rushing yards, 266 passing. So it was much more pass heavy in the regular season. But I feel like this playoff game and this atmosphere in Kansas City, you got to go to the run game. It's been working.
Yes.
And I think because you kind of bullied Baltimore's defensive line, with your offensive line, I think you could be able to do the same thing versus Kansas City defense, right? I mean, Chris Jones, your number one problem. Let's make sure you double him.
And that's why they're vulnerable in the run game. Chris Jones is more of a pass rusher, but he's an elite defensive player. If he's on the field, you're looking at that guy. You're running to the other side, basically.
Right.
You'll run away from him, and that works.
Watch out for Nick Bolton. Where's he at?
That's where you use your Alec Anderson, your sixth offensive lineman tight end, and he's going to cut over to where the run is going and, make it happen. And you pull the tackles or whatever. You can do all sorts of creative stuff that has been working really well for James Cook. And this offensive, really, whoever touches the ball, Ty Johnson's been doing the same, Ray Davis, so Josh Allen. So the runs have been effective, and we're going to see that. But I don't think it turns into a game where, we're running every down. And the other part of the Ravens, I think I texted in our group chat and in other chats I was having, it got too predictable. It was first down, and I'm like, just pass, because they know you're going to run the ball down their throat, and the line is all clogged, and you still run the ball. In this game, you have to keep that in mind and kind of change the tempo a little bit, even though you're trying to make the run game effective. And,
well, yeah,
and
we
I
went a
think
little Rick Dennison in that game. Yeah.
yeah, yes,
Run, pass, punt.
yeah,
Run, pass, punt.
exactly. Especially with the double dip
Yeah.
opportunity, that was
Looked
not
like the
not
2017 Bills
ideal.
up there.
Not ideal.
Yeah. Whatever works at this point, right? Okay. So I think just the last point, I think the game's going to be great, right? There's a lot of ways this could go, right? I feel like there's a lot of different ways the offense can game plan versus the Chiefs, because the Bills they have a pretty deep roster, right? So I mean, if you want to go the pass route, I think they could do that. They could be balanced, like we said, but I think ultimately it's going to be rushing will be the key on offense.
Yeah, and I mean, they have guys on defense, right? I mean, you've got to at least be aware. Obviously, we've talked about Chris Jones, but I'm a big fan of Nick Bolton, the linebacker, right? Oh, I wanted the Bills to draft him, and Trent McDuffie. Obviously, we know the story there, and so they have guys who are big time playmakers that I think Josh and the offense are going to be aware of where they are on the field at all times to design how to attack them, just like it was effective in that first game. And obviously, the Chiefs are going to counter with a game plan against what worked for the Bills in that first game plan too. So we'll see. It's gonna be a good matchup of two great rosters, two great teams, two great coaches going head to head and trying to outsmart each other. And so far, Andy Reid has come out on top in those situations. And this is another game, like I said, coming off his best game ever as a coach for the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott has to continue to do that and continue to coach smart and well and outsmart the other guys.
Right,
and with this combination of offensive and defensive coordinator, we're seeing that chemistry a little more, I think. Sean McDermott's philosophy is there, obviously, but their play calling and their momentum and his trust in them is proving to be effective.
They've done a great job this year, no doubt about it. And then Joe Brady's getting, head coaching interviews. I'm sure Bobby Babich will have one in the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a great job, and they're doing more with less. I think that everyone agrees with that. Compared to last year, I think the roster was a little better last year, but what this roster could turn into in the coming years, I think is something to be excited about. You have two really good coordinators. The roster's only going to get better. But this roster today is capable of winning the Super Bowl, which I think is super, super exciting.
Yes. And I said that all offseason, all preseason. Remember, people were saying, oh, I'm worried about the Bills. I'm like, guys, number one, this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl. I don't care what anybody tells you, they are. And here they are, a couple steps away because they are good enough to win it.
Yeah, but did you predict the philosophy change? I think that was the big thing that nobody saw coming, right? It's going to be a run-first team. They're going to, Josh is going to be more mature than he was last year, right? That stuff you can't really see coming. I mean, you can look at the roster all you want, but I think the philosophy change.
I mean, we all knew that they
really made this team successful.
After James Cook's success last year, we knew they were going to lean on the run game too. But I don't think we would have predicted 16 touchdowns and all that from the run game from James Cook. So I mean, he definitely exceeded expectations, and the balance and the trust that this offense has. Credit to the offensive line too, right? We haven't talked about them much, but goddamn, did they do a great job against Baltimore, and Spencer Brown certainly at the top of the list there. And again, just them as a unit protecting for Josh in the pass game, yes, but part of that run game and opening the holes and filling their blocks where they need to be, phenomenal when you watch it back and live. Like now I can see it live. Like when a guy gets crushed and James Cook finds the right slot, that they've dialed it up right. And lucky for us, that has been effective all year and certainly a pleasant surprise. Above expectations. We knew they were going to be good, but they're
we saw that there's a lot of changes, right? Mitch Morris, we weren't really sure how Connor McGovern would do at center because he was a great left guard, So it felt a little weird, like, okay, you're taking him from the position he's played great in the last few years, making him the center, which I think ended up being a good move. But the offensive line really didn't miss a beat this year, and I think that's another big piece of their success. But let's take a look at some of the comments here. So Spin 0481. What if they got Worthy and Brown going deep?
Then you got to get home. You got to get home with the pass rush.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, look, I think this is the game plan. At least maybe not every single drive, but I think you're definitely going to see some shots from the Chiefs because, I mean, Lamar had success with it last week, right? Rashad Bateman getting behind the safety, right? I think that's a vulnerability right now. If you're watching that film, you're thinking, oh, we can definitely do that with our guys, right? Especially with Pat Mahomes and his arm and his capability. I mean, that's something to be on the lookout for sure. But then you know, if you're the Chiefs, you scare the defense deep. They'll play 2 deep safeties, and then Kelsey's open, right? And that's the game the Chiefs want to play. The underneath throws, the run game. That's what they want to do. So I absolutely expect Brown and Worthy to, you know, have some go routes in this game. Is Benford out? Last I checked, he was limited in practice.
Right. He's still in concussion protocol, but he was at practice limited. So technically he's not cleared. So whatever you want to say there. But the fact that he's present at practice seems to indicate that he will be good to go by Sunday. At least I hope so. Right?
Yeah, good question. He's a big piece of the defense. I mean, again, having a starting corner out in this game, that's just going to hurt. So I think he's good to go. But
elite starting corner. Yeah.
Yeah, good question, Marianne Calabrese. Again with Marianne Calabrese, Chiefs always use trick plays in the fourth quarter.
Oh,
especially in these games, right?
Yes. Usually when they're ahead, mind you, by a few scores, and then they do something crazy. But they're certainly with the coach that they have, Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes and that crew, they know that they're capable of doing anything. So they're not afraid to try it. Certainly not a call Sean McDermott would make, right? You know, he's not out there drawing up creative plays and being like, oh, let's have fun and do this. No, let's stick to the fundamentals and do what we know works and, you know, stick to our strengths. But you have to be, especially if you have a lead that's 1 score or close, you know, 10 points, 8 points. You have to be ready for them to pull out all the stops. And again, I think the Bills defense has done a good job of seeing that and being ready for it, you know, and not letting a team make one over on them by, you know, lateraling it and, you know, giving it to the wide receiver who tosses it back to Mahomes, whatever crazy play they drop. So I think the Bills defense will be on the lookout for that in the right situations.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know like Xavier Worthy, they like the jet sweep, you know, he's definitely going to be involved in the trick play, in my opinion. And watch out for Kelsey, too. We've seen a lot of trick plays from Kelsey in the last few matchups as well. Mr. Ralph Wilson Sr. himself, philosophy change was last season when Brady took over. It's the reason Diggs worked his way out. Yeah, I think that there's some truth to that, no doubt. Would the Bills win 6 in a row at the end of the season last year? I forget now, but I know it was they had to win a lot of games to make the playoffs, and they did that. It did feel like there was a philosophy change there, so that's a good point. You know, they were much more mature in the games they won, right? They were
certainly on offense.
I think Diggs' targets like got cut in half the second half of the season, right? So,
right, but still expectations were exceeded. Again, we expected them to lean more on the run game. I don't think anybody called, you know, James Cook breaking or tying the touchdown record for running backs in the franchise. So yeah, that was exceeding certainly expectations.
All right, last one. Roy Collins, has Kansas City used their ring around the rosy this season?
I don't think so. I haven't
seen it. They haven't needed it. I don't.
Yeah, no. But and again, that was one of those plays where they were just having fun because they had a lead and they were able to do that. In this game, it's going to be all business if they're down in the fourth quarter, which again, I think they will be. So
yeah. All right, so let's get into the picks, but first let's just discuss some of the narratives, right? So sounds like we definitely avoided the narrative of 4 divisional losses in a row, right? And three of them would have been at home for the Bills. That would have been such a brutal narrative. So what's the narrative now? Right now you're on to Kansas City. If you lose this game,
you got to beat them.
What are you talking about? I think
you're talking about David and Goliath. You can't beat the Giant.
Are you 5-0 versus, or the Chiefs would be 5-0 versus the Bills in the playoffs, or is it 4-0?
No, they would be 4-0.
4-0.
No team has gone 4-0 against another team in the playoffs. I learned that this week as well.
Narrative. That's a good narrative.
Yeah,
so they're already out there.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So we all know the narrative if they win. Josh Allen's the greatest quarterback of all time. Put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
That's even before the Super Bowl. But
yes. But we'll still, and again, it's narrative wise, I think it's more of still the Bills can't get over the hump. Everything we're hearing about Baltimore this week would be said about the Bills next week, which is unfortunate, but earned if you can't beat the Chiefs again, right? And it sucks, but yeah, you got to eat it because it's true. You can't beat the Chiefs if you lose to them again.
Well, and that's the thing, but nobody's beaten the Chiefs except for, Joe Burrow and the Bengals one time in the playoffs the last 4 years.
Correct.
3 years. So it's not just the Bills. It just feels like the Bills they have more of a spotlight because of the Allen Mahomes matchup. It's the new Manning Brady matchup, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And did you look at who was it who posts the stats of the last 5 games the Bills and Chiefs have played? Exact same number of points, exact same number of turnovers, exact same. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
they're two very good competitive teams, right? And it makes the rivalry fun, but in order to be a rivalry, we have to punch back. So hopefully this
you gotta think the Bills are due for this, right? That's just what it felt like last week. Like, we cannot lose this game. We're due for a win in the divisional round. You flip a coin, right? Okay, it's 60-40. Let's say Chiefs 60-40. You still get 40. If you just keep playing, you're going to get one, right? It just feels like this could be it.
Roy in the comments saying he wants to see my Bills outfit come back. Let me tell you, we win this week. I'm wearing that damn thing every day for 2 weeks. Everywhere, every day for 2 weeks until, we've never seen that, right? We've never in our modern days here seen this team get to a Super Bowl. So if that happens, trust me, I will be wearing Bills everything everywhere for that entire 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. So yes, you will see I promise you that I will have the suit on next week. If the Bills win against the Chiefs, I'm going to be suited up for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, we're getting there, baby. We're doing it.
So you do have a Bills suit, but I think for the Super Bowl, you might have to get a new Bills suit that has like the Super Bowl emblem on it.
Yeah, there you go. I want the Super Bowl logo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we win the whole thing, then it's champions. I have a tattoo on my leg, and I left room for the Lombardis. So I want to get that edition as well. So let's do it.
Hopefully,
one game at a time. Though. Got to get
there.
through the Chiefs. Got to get through the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's time. They're so due for this game.
There's no doubt in my mind that the Bills are the better team. They're playing better. They're, cohesively. You can go position by position and maybe give the Chiefs the edge, but this team is a better team than the Chiefs. They proved that in the regular season, and they still are.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little bit too. The Chiefs got to be getting burnt out, right?
Right.
Even the Patriots at times, they would just show up in the playoffs to have a bad game. I feel like this Chiefs team, man, they've played so much football the last 3 seasons that at some point it's got to give. You know what I mean? You cannot stay on top in the NFL forever. It's just too difficult. So maybe this is when they get burnt out. Maybe they hit a brick wall this weekend. All right. How about, we didn't talk about the Commanders yet, but how about the Washington Commanders?
Oh my God. The story, I said this when they made the playoffs, just making the playoffs. The Washington Commanders were the story of this NFL season without a doubt. A year ago today, January, a year ago after the draft, if you would have said the Washington Commanders are making the playoffs, you would have been laughed in your face out of the building. Like, you don't know anything about football, you moron, right? And yet they made the playoffs. Okay, they made the playoffs. Holy shit, they made the playoffs. That's a miracle. This team was phenomenal all year.
Right. They lost 9 in a row last year.
Have fun in Cancun next week. No, they win a game in the playoffs. Now you're going up against the juggernaut, the Lions, a team who's had it all. Even me, I said to my friend who's a Washington Commanders fan, hey, look, this team is the story of the season. Even though you're going to get your ass kicked today, they're the team that everybody should be talking about because this team does not belong here. They're here. They have the heart. They've grind all season. And they go out and they freaking played the best game of the season. They beat the Lions, the mighty Lions, who,
Yeah,
we know
kicked
the
their
story
ass.
there.
Yeah,
They're injured on defense, and
sure.
yes,
I
and it
mean, the
was
bye week I think hurt them, right?
yes, right. And
We've
there
seen
was a
that in the
lot.
past. Where
Exactly,
teams
exactly.
take a week
Tough.
off and they lose their momentum.
And they have both coaches, getting interviewed. So it was a tough situation for the Lions, but so excited for these Commanders. My God. And I said going into that game, you're only to my buddy who's a Washington fan. I said, look, your only solace is they can do whatever they want to in this game because they've got nothing to lose. There is no pressure on them. They were never supposed to be here. And they did play like that. And it was such a fun game to watch. Right.
Yeah.
And I expect more of the same here. A division rivalry game? Are you kidding me? The
Commanders
Commanders
beat the Eagles straight
they
up,
beat
right?
them.
They
So
beat them
I
in the
mean,
regular season, so it'll be a fun one.
there is anybody who says the Commanders can't win is nuts now. Is going to get laughed at, just like a year ago if you had said they would be in the NFC Championship game, one of the final two teams in the NFC. Absolutely crazy. The Eagles belong here. They did what they had to do. Even I had them here in the preseason.
Right.
I had them losing
Saquon
to a
Barkley's
different
enough
team,
to get them over the hump, right? And that's showing up here.
Yes.
But yeah, how about let's say Jaden Daniels, right? Second pick in the NFL draft. That's now 2 seasons in a row where the second quarterback picked leads his team to the playoffs.
Both were my favorite quarterbacks in that draft class.
Right. So what is going on there? Is it what's going on with the first pick, I guess is the question, right? Is it the organization's not ready for a quarterback as far as development? Is it they're nuking it and just taking the wrong guy based on hype?
No, I think with CJ and Bryce, it was definitely a pick your flavor, right? Like, which guy do you like more, right? With Jaden, it was who is number 2, right? It was Caleb Williams is king, who is number 2? Nobody could shine Caleb's shoes, who's number 2? And there was a lot of options for number 2.
Right.
When I looked at I didn't watch much Caleb Williams in college, but when I went back and watched, I'm like, this kid's the one I would draft. Jaden Daniels is the one I would pick. And if you remember when we were talking about, who's going to New England, I wanted Drake May to go to New England because I didn't want them to get Jaden Daniels because I wanted the Commanders to get. And so I mean, he was my favorite quarterback in the draft to come out and play. They all have a lot of big careers ahead of them.
Right.
So I'm not writing off Bryce Young or Caleb Williams yet.
Right.
But I mean, obviously early returns much bigger for Jaden Daniels. And he's
I think it's an organizational fit as well, right?
Correct.
D'Amico Ryans
are a dumpster fire.
For the Texans, right? You get the quarterback. The guy's a hell of a defensive coach, hell of a coach in general. And same for Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's been to a Super Bowl, right? Led the Atlanta Falcons to a Super Bowl. Their defense has been good for a number of years in Washington, right? And their offense just seemed okay. They've had a good running game for a number of years. We all know about Terry McLaurin, and they've drafted receivers, but just could not get the quarterback position right. And that once that switch flips, it's a whole different team. If those other pieces are there and you hit in the draft, it shows up immediately. It seems like, right?
And
whereas if you don't have those other pieces, it can take a while.
And the energy that Terry McLaurin, a true captain on that team, right? The way you could see him interacting with the guys on the sideline, players coming to him and celebrating, it was because he's the veteran, the guy who's there, who's still playing at a top level, right? And helps the rookie out. Sure, it's Jaden Daniels' team, but man, McLaurin is a huge part of it. And, it was a fun thing to see happen in the NFL, that this team is the absolute underdog, and it's cool to see them here. Now they go up against their big rival in the Eagles, two totally different energy teams, right? The Eagles, you're talking about A.J. Brown reading books on the sideline, and do they have the chemistry? And, they flopped big time last year. And the Commanders are coming in like, we are happy to be here. We're going all out. We are all hoorah, and
There's belief.
But the Eagles, as we've said multiple times throughout the entire season, best roster in the NFL, up and down. Defensively, offensively, I said in the preseason, they win all in.
Yeah,
they're going to have
Baltimore. Right.
They're going to have cap problems in the next few years, but they win all in to get where they are now. So they have to capitalize and have to finish. And for me, at this point, I think the Eagles win the game. But the 6 points, I mean, how can you trust that with how this Commanders team has played?
Right.
A touchdown,
the regular season too. And Commanders definitely went toe to toe with them.
Yeah, and division rival, each other.
And then the Commanders put up 40 on Detroit. I mean,
Yeah,
on the
they're
road.
capable.
I mean, I'm not picking against the Commanders here. Yeah, I could see the Eagles winning this game, but it's going to be a close one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on that.
So I'll take the Eagles to win, but
24.
yeah, I think the Commanders +6. Yeah. Good game to watch, though, as it should be with the final 4 teams in the NFL.
And then I don't know about you, but I really want that 1991 Super Bowl rematch. Right?
Yes.
Bills Commanders. That's
everybody would.
That would be fun.
And here's the thing, right? You know, the Bills going to a Super Bowl again if we beat the Chiefs against an NFC East team. You know, you talked. What's the storyline? That's going to be a huge one without a doubt if the Bills make it. You know, another NFC team. If it's the Eagles, the only one that didn't beat us back in the 90s. So yeah, I mean, certainly.
Well,
certainly
and from a Bills perspective, like, and this is where it's funny. I feel like as a Bills fan, if you make it to the Super Bowl, you feel like you can win against the Commanders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? Or the Eagles. I think the
Bills. I mean,
sure,
but like comparing if the Bills had to play the Eagles versus if the Bills had to play the Commanders. I think most people would probably pick. I think the Bills
favorites.
Could beat the Commanders.
Yeah,
right.
The Bills would be favorites against Commanders, probably pretty close versus the Eagles. Probably
right. Rookie quarterback. I mean, you're walking into the Super Bowl thinking, oh, this is it. This is happening, right?
Yeah.
Rookie quarterback versus the Sean McDermott has been in the league a long time.
Yeah, eats up rookie quarterbacks.
Right,
too.
right. I mean, that's
sure. So yes, I guess in that sense, go Commanders. But really, I'm focused on the Bills game, and whoever wins that game, bring it on.
Just get there first. I'm with you. All right, yeah, Bills +2 at Kansas City. This was 1.5, right? I think it went up 0.5 point.
Yes.
But it feels right. I mean, Kansas City's a very tough environment to play on the road. Bills are well aware. They've been there numerous times. You know, this feels like a divisional rival at this point. So I feel like that line is right.
As much as Andy Reid wants to call his team the underdogs, they're not, right? And the media is still picking Kansas City, and everybody's still saying you can't pick. Yeah. They do deserve to be favorites at home. Obviously, I think this is reasonable. 3 points is the default. They're saying, hey, this game's going to be extra close, so we'll give it 2 points. I think that is reasonable, but I also think the Bills are going to win. So, I already put my bet down because I saw the opening line was plus for the Bills. So, yeah, I mean, definitely like the Bills to win here. I haven't given a final score prediction, but I think the Bills have to score 30 plus. So I'm going to go 34-19 Buffalo.
Yeah, and I think last week I felt like it was going to be more of a defensive game. There was actually more offensive than I thought, honestly. I was expecting lower than 25. This game has that feel as well. Like Kansas City's offense has not been the same this year. They love to just control the game on offense, underneath throws. But again, I think they do take some shots. So I think I'll go right around, what we saw last week. I think it's more like a 28-21 game. And yeah, I'll take the Bills to win it. They're just due.
Love it. Yes, we have to. You got to finish. Now is the time. You have to finish. So get it done. Find a way. I have belief, and it's weird. I wouldn't call it confidence. I'm not like, oh, the Bills are gonna beat them, crush them, whatever. But belief that I know the Bills can beat this team. Obviously, they've shown that, and the confidence, the energy. It's different for this game, for us, for this team, for the organization, for the city. It feels different than it did in the past. And, I think that is going to play out on the field. And like I said earlier, if it's going to be a blowout, it's going to be in the Bills' favor. And that's how it feels coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it hasn't really hit me yet that if the Bills win this game, they go to the Super Bowl. But I feel like when I start watching the game and start seeing the Bills make plays, like we did with Baltimore, you jump out of your chair, go nuts, right? Because it's going to be an intense game, and if you can actually keep it close, where the Bills have a chance to win at the end, that's going to be the most exciting time of the year, probably the most exciting time in the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was really exciting when Josh Allen started getting good at football, right? He made the playoffs the first time as Bills fans who's been starved of the playoffs for so long. Playing playoff games, winning playoff games was very exciting, but it's been a long wait for the opportunity to beat Kansas City and go to the Super Bowl. I mean, this is next level.
Ultimate.
So it's as good as it gets.
Can't draw it up any better. Like you said, you can't draw it up any better. Get it done. 2 more games to go. Start with Kansas City. Get it done.
Yep. So
just win, baby.
Yep. Get your tickets to the Buffalo Hotel. Anthony, I know you got to withdraw your 401k to go to the Super Bowl, so you might want to start on that. And I already got my bail money saved up, so I'm ready.
Love it. I love it. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Go Bills, baby.
Yep.
Go
Be
Bills.
responsible, and we'll talk to you next week. Win or lose. Go Bills.
Thanks for kicking it with us.